playing Metal Gear Solid in a loud, lethal and bombastic way is kind of like wearing shoes without socks. You could definitely do it, and some people prefer it like this, but it's not really the intended way to play the game. Your mission orders in Metal Gear frequently require you to be inconspicuous and avoid the enemy's detection. And while the new remake has updated the original game's controls, there are some mechanics and systems which remain finicky and hard to master, especially the CQC. So if you're trying to complete a run with 0 alerts, or you're just looking for some pointers, here's our guide to help you stealth through the jungle like the boss in Metal Gear Solid Delta. First off, what even counts as stealth in Metal Gear Solid Delta? Snake is basically never allowed to be where he is, so if he's ever seen by the enemy, this will trigger an alert status for the area that you are in. Staying out of sight and taking enemies out quietly will keep you from entering this state, but some actions, like firing a loud gun, or letting a soldier wake up after being choked, can trigger a caution state, indicated at the top of the screen. This doesn't count as breaking stealth as far as the game is concerned, but you will have to contend with varied guard patrol patterns and an increased guard presence, as backup usually gets called in during this time. Delta rewards you for breaking stealth as few times as possible during an entire playthrough. Plus, it's kind of Snake's whole thing. So, let's break down how to slither through the forest undetected. How visible Snake is or isn't will be shown at all times via the camo index at the bottom of the screen. The higher the percentage, the more effectively Snake is currently blending into his surroundings. Your camouflage makes a huge difference here, and you can change it from the survival menu in order to blend in more effectively. But Delta also introduces a dynamic camouflage quick menu, which you can bring up during gameplay by holding up on the D-pad. This menu doesn't give you as much control over your appearance as the full one does, but it will show you your most recently used camo and face paint combinations that you can change to, while also showing you how much your camo index will increase or decrease due to the change. This menu is a godsend, as simply moving from a patch of grass to a nearby brick wall can necessitate a new outfit each time. So use this new feature often to keep that camo index high. Standing, crouching, lying prone, or pressing up against a wall to take cover will all change your camo index too, as will moving quickly versus moving slowly. A high camo index means nothing if you run past an enemy without a care in the world, as the number one thing a guard will notice is movement. So even if you have a high camo index number, moving near or in front of a guard is much more likely to get you seen than just staying still or walking behind them. If you're unsure of how much your current camo index will let you get away with, here's some quick comparisons I made to give you a rough idea. In broad daylight, with an index at 50%, crouch walking in front of an enemy works at a distance of about 15 to 20 meters. And of course, crawling makes Snake the hardest to see, allowing you to get much closer to the enemy's field of view at the cost of having a slower movement speed. If an enemy is coming straight for you, a reliable way to hide from them is to lie down in a patch of tall grass, max out your camo index with your camouflage, and stay still until nearby enemies have passed you by. If they get close enough by walking right on top of you, they will definitely see you even if you're not moving. But unless they're coming right for you, you can just stay still and trust the process. If you're getting caught by enemies that you didn't even know were there, you could make use of the various sensor items that you start with. The motion detector, active sonar, and anti-personnel sensors are all battery-operated items that will help give you more information about what's surrounding you. Some stay active constantly, while others require the press of a button. Just keep an eye out on the battery level to make sure you don't drain them completely. Half-used batteries will recharge when not in use as Snake moves around. If you're playing on hard difficulty, you'll only have access to the anti-personnel detector, and the extreme difficulty locks you out of using any of them. Okay, these tips can help you stay undetected, but what happens when you need to start incapacitating enemies to get by? That's where your weapons and CQC come in handy. Close quarters combat, known as CQC in-game, is Snake's way of dealing with enemies that are up close and personal. It's a term that encompasses all of the various ways that he can interact with enemies that are within arm's reach. CQC is perfect for helping you deal with multiple alerted soldiers, or for quietly incapacitating one soldier at a time in a stealthy setting. Snake can only use CQC when empty-handed, or when wielding specific smaller weapons, like his 2 starter pistols or the survival knife. Look for the CQC logo on the weapon icon to see if your current weapon is compatible with CQC. If it's not, you can only pull off limited and clumsy melee moves with that certain weapon equipped, and you will need to unequip that weapon if you want to use CQC properly. The main CQC button is R2 or right trigger for modern controls, or circle or B for legacy controls. You can press the CQC button at any time to execute a melee attack, but these strikes are pretty short range and pretty ineffective. Alternatively, if you sneak up behind an enemy by holding L1 or left bumper to silence your footsteps, you'll see an on-screen prompt for using CQC when you get close enough to them. Getting this close without holding the stalking button means you will also alert them with your footsteps, but there is a small window here where you can press the CQC button to avoid an alert situation. Once you're in range, if you press and hold the CQC button without holding any direction on the left stick, you'll grab your enemy in a chokehold. While keeping the CQC button held down, you can choose between different actions. You can choke the enemy by repeatedly pressing the CQC button. They'll be knocked out at the point where there are stars swirling above their head, and if you keep pressing the button, you'll take them out lethally. This is the quietest and most reliable way to neutralize an enemy, as it doesn't use any resources. You can press the X or A button to take your hostage out lethally with your knife, but we'll talk more about the merits and risks of killing your enemies a bit later on. Moving while holding your target is great for getting them to a less conspicuous location, perfect when you need to take a minute to interrogate or eliminate an enemy out of sight. Speaking of interrogating, the Interrogate button lets you gain information from your captive. Sometimes this will let you mark the enemies in your current area on your map, learn new radio stations that can heal you or call off the guards, and more. Each guard has multiple things to say, and most of them can be really helpful, so be sure to interrogate everyone multiple times if you have the time and space to do so.
Speak. Radio 148.39.
Once they start repeating themselves, insulting you, or telling you to let them go, you'll know that you've heard everything they have to say.
I don't have anything.
Aiming at something else while you're dragging an enemy around can be a good way to take someone else out that might raise the alarm if they find you, and it's also an effective tactic for dealing with a large host of enemies if they've all got line of sight on you, because they'll hold their fire when their friend is your human shield. Be warned though that aiming in this mode is quite shaky, so you'll only want to use this for close range engagements. For modern controls, if you want to go back to holding an enemy after you start aiming, you'll need to let go of the left trigger and then quickly press and hold the CQC button again before the animation finishes. Letting go of aim without doing this will result in you releasing your hostage, and then they might raise the alarm or attack you, so keep your grip on them. You can technically throw an enemy after you've grabbed them, but this doesn't knock them out, and then you'll either need to punch and kick them until they're unconscious, hold them up by pointing a gun at their back, or deal with them with your weapons to avoid an alert. There is a much more effective way to throw someone to the ground though. If you press the CQC button while within CQC range of an enemy while holding a direction with the left stick, instead of quietly grabbing your foe, Snake will slam them into the ground, knocking them out instantly. This is a relatively loud move compared to quietly choking an enemy out, but it's much quieter than shooting an unsilenced gun, and much faster than choking someone. So it can actually be a very effective way of sneaking through a base while taking enemies out quickly, without using ammunition or suppressor durability. It's also a quick and effective way to take someone down non-lethally if you've already been seen. Ranged stealth combat is made possible thanks to the use of silenced weapons and throwable distractions. The 2 starting pistols you get in the early portions of the game are silenced by default, with the M1911 being your lethal pistol and the Mark 22 being your Tranquilizer pistol. You can opt to attach or detach the suppressors from the quick menu, but you can't change this if you're in the middle of a CQC hold. When using modern controls, you can now aim over Snake's shoulder in third person. This is great for when you want to fire a shot quickly, but the bullet spread is much more inaccurate than aiming in first person. Crouching or lying prone improves your aim somewhat, and aiming in first person improves it substantially. To aim in first person, tap R1 at any time, and then when you aim, you'll use the sights of your weapon. The Tranquilizer pistol is essential for getting through the game without racking up a body count, but the way it works is quite specific. The Tranquilizer rounds will only knock someone out instantly if you hit them in the head. Landing a shot anywhere else on the body will still work, but it will take some time for the person to fall asleep as a result, which can lead to them falling down in a spot where you don't want them to. Tranquilizer darts also fly through the air more slowly than bullets, and as such, they'll drop in the air much more than normal bullets would. When using modern controls, targets that are more than 10 meters or roughly 30 feet away from you will need to be aimed at in a way that compensates for the inherent drop of the dart. This makes it much harder to hit headshots at a distance with the Tranq pistol, although it is very rewarding when you get the aim just right. Through some testing we've done, we've found that when playing with legacy controls, the bullet drop is somewhat decreased compared to when playing with modern controls. According to Konami, they made adjustments to the game's difficulty when playing with modern controls, as it made parts of the game too easy. This seems to be one of those adjustments. During the Virtuous mission at the start of the game, you'll start with and be able to find a heap of extra suppressors. But once Operation Snake Eater begins and your equipment is reset back to basically 0, suppressors will be much harder to find. If you use your suppressors on your pistols frequently, you'll soon find yourself without any means of silencing your shots after they degrade. So it's important to use your suppressors tactfully, and also search diligently for suppressors in the world. Aside from ranged weapons, you can also use food as throwable distractions to lure enemies into specific locations. This is great for getting people to look a certain way, or for breaking them out of their patrol pattern so that they're easier to sneakily take out. Also, if you happen to destroy the nearby storehouse in an area using TNT, nearby soldiers will become hungry, meaning they'll rush to nearby food and eat it immediately, even if it's rotten or poisonous food. Yet another way to get these pesky soldiers out of your way.
That's awful.
Now that we've covered the fundamentals, let's go over a few tips and tricks to help you out. How you neutralize an enemy determines exactly how long they'll be incapacitated for, so it's good to know how long you have on the clock once you've knocked someone out. Punching and kicking an enemy with regular CQC attacks will knock them out, and they will be out of commission for roughly 2.5 minutes. That's not heaps of time, and when they come to, they'll call HQ to raise the alarm and call for backup. A CQC takedown or choke is very similar, except that it lasts for 5 minutes. By contrast, knocking people out with tranq rounds will not only incapacitate them for 5 minutes at a time, but they won't even call into HQ when they wake up. The only downside with this much improved incapacitation method is that you have to use some of your suppressor's limited durability, or else risking people hearing your gunshot when firing your tranq pistol without the silencer. You can tell if an enemy's stun is going to wear off soon if the number of stars or Zs above their heads is at only 1 or 2. Of course, to eliminate the concern of if and when an enemy may wake up after you stash them in a bush somewhere, you can always kill them while you're holding them hostage or with a lethal weapon, as this will permanently remove them from the equation. Don't let us stop you from playing this way if you want to, just keep in mind that some unlocks and late game sequences are negatively affected if you have a high kill count, so use that knife at your own risk. In Rasvet, where Snake originally meets Sokolov, you'll be able to find a few key items for your kit when you come back here during Operation Snake Eater. On top of these boxes is a box. This item is perfect for hiding right under the enemy's nose without them suspecting a thing. Inside the building, in the locker against the wall, is also a set of thermal goggles, ideal for identifying enemies ahead of you in the dark or while you're in thick foliage. Finally, you can find an extra suppressor for your Mark 22 on this Ocelot soldier, near the back fence. Pick up and put down the officer's unconscious body once or twice to see if the suppressor drops. Just make sure you do this before neutralizing all 8 soldiers, as this will trigger a cutscene and clear the bodies away afterwards. A lesser known stealth option that Snake can pull off is holding someone at gunpoint.
Freeze.
If you get close enough behind an enemy and then aim your weapon at them, Snake will tell the enemy to freeze, and they'll put their weapons down. You can even do this with a weapon that's completely out of ammo, although if the enemy realizes this, then they'll quickly unfreeze themselves and attack.
Who's that?
Once they're frozen, if you circle around to the front of them and aim at their head or their crotch, they'll shake out the contents of their bags for you without you having to loot them manually. You then have a much larger window for using a CQC takedown or hold on them, but if you leave them like this or leave them for too long, they'll eventually turn on you and attack.
Who's that?
So make sure to deal with them in one way or another before moving on. This hold-up method is also the only way to retrieve 8mm film reels from the soldiers carrying them to unlock movies in the secret theater. If you harm or even just put the soldiers to sleep before retrieving these reels, the reels will pop into the air and be destroyed. It's best to hide bodies somewhere like in patches of grass, in a locker, or around a corner somewhere, as other soldiers will call for backup and raise a caution alarm when finding any bodies nearby.
The enemies here?
The radios that soldiers use to call HQ are usually strapped onto their front. You can spot them by the flashing red light, and these radios are made so visible to you because you can actually destroy them with a well-placed tranq dart or bullet. The easiest way to hit this shot is to simply shoot the radio once your enemy is unconscious on the ground, so that they can't call for help when they wake up, but you can also make the shot from a distance while they're up and about. By walking up to a closed door in first person mode, you can press in on the right stick to peek inside the doorway without fully opening it. You can also use this method to stand on your toes and peek up and over small walls without fully revealing yourself to the other side. Both of these movements are less conspicuous than looking manually. If you're skulking near to an enemy when your stamina starts to run low, your belly will rumble and you will likely be heard.
Huh? What's that sound?
Make sure to keep your stamina up in stealthy situations to avoid moments like this. Ultimately, one of the best tools you can use when trying to stealth through Metal Gear Solid is patience. Most problems can be solved by just waiting for soldiers to move into position or call off any alert if they've lost sight of you. Taking your time, moving only when it's safe, and using your resources carefully will ensure that you make it through to the other side of Operation Snake Eater in one piece. Despite being set in a vast jungle, Delta is broken down into pretty small areas. Nearly every time you see a fade to black in between zones, a new autosave is being created. So if you're spotted, accidentally kill someone, or you just want to approach your situation differently, there's no penalty to reloading your save. An extension of this reload method can be used to clear an alert status, but we would classify this as something of an exploit, so the purist amongst you may prefer to forego this tactic. If you trigger an alert and then move to a new area, then reload the most recent autosave that was just made when you came through, when you load back in, the alert will no longer be active. It will still count on your record for this playthrough, but the reload clears the heat immediately, so you don't have to deal with it. That should be plenty of intel to assist you in stopping World War III without being seen. But if you'd like some more help with Metal Gear Solid Delta, be sure to check out our wiki for lists of important equipment to get early, or the biggest changes made between Metal Gear Solid 3 the original and the new Delta remake. And for all other things gaming, keep it here on IGN.